Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's public safety briefing led by Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Phil Banks. Following our last speaker, we will take a few questions from the media, followed by some questions that have been submitted by the public ahead of today's briefing. I would now like to turn it over to Deputy Mayor Phil Banks.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Mayor Adams, I'd like to start by wishing all those who celebrate a happy Passover, a happy Holy Week, happy Easter, and a continued Ramadan Mubarak. I'm joined here today by NYPD Police Commissioner Keechant Sewell, the New York City Department of Education Chancellor David Banks, NYPD School Safety Commanding Officer Deputy Chief Marlon Laren, and the Department of Education's Chief of Safety and Prevention Partnership, Mark Rampersant. We're here today to talk to you about an extremely important and critical safety issue, and that is school safety. At the core, we are talking about the safety of our most treasured population, our children. But before we begin, the police commissioner is going to be speaking about some crime stats and some information that she talked about yesterday. Commissioner?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So yesterday, the NYPD did its first quarter crime briefing, and we were able to report on some very encouraging numbers for the first quarter. We are down in 5 of the 7 major categories of crime in the city, and transit crime is at an 8% decrease year to date. We talk about the numbers being year over year, we're largely flat, but we are in a very different place than we were last year. Mayor Adams made it a point that we were going to focus on the violence that was plaguing the city at the time. At the beginning of last year, our greatest challenges were gun violence. There were shootings and shooting victims, and that's what was driving a lot of our crime data. But as we are today, that number is coming from felony assaults and grand larcenies. So we have continue to see the double-digit decreases in shootings and shooting victims and homicides, but we are also tackling the other major crimes as well. Most of our felony assaults result a lot from domestic violence cases. There are some assaults on officers as well, but we recognize that's something we have to drill down on, and we did a presser with the mayor about our grand larceny auto issues as well. But I think when we look at where we are and all of the numbers that we're able to drive down in the last year and 3 months is a true testament to the work of the women and men of the NYPD, and we're going to continue to push forward to drive down those other categories as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So one of the purposes of this public safety briefings is to keep the public informed of what is happening in the city, and it gives the administration the opportunity to talk directly to you and for us to hear directly from you. And you can sign up at hearfromeric.com, right, hearfromeric.com, to receive email notifications from Mayor Adams and submit your questions and your comments. We will try to answer as many of these questions during these briefings, and the questions that we were not able to get to, you will receive a reply. Listen, the mayor believes in collaboration. This is evident in the many facets of this administration. From the meetings that he has held, which has produced the soon-to-be-released retail theft report, to the original ones, which was the Criminal Justice Summit, to the many meetings he has with community and elected officials, he has stated over and over again that we can win, but only if we all work together. This is especially true when it comes to public safety. Every single agency plays a role in protecting the public. While much of this collaboration goes on behind the scenes, if you have watched any of the previous public safety briefings before, you have seen examples of this. And we will be giving you a closer look at some of these initiatives in the future. But even if you can't always see the interagency collaboration, our hope is that you can feel it. Collaboration leads to better delivery of services and better results for the residents. So today, we are focused on one example of cross-agency collaboration, which is arguably our most important job: protecting our children and keeping our schools safe. The leadership team at this table knows that school safety does not begin when the kids walk through the doors in the morning, nor does it end when the last bell rings at the end of the school day. To that point, it's not just the responsibilities of these 2 agencies to keep our kids safe, but just about all city agencies as well and members of the community. It is especially important for parents to be proactive in talking to your kids about school safety. It can be as simple as asking them how their day was at the dinner table. Let them know If you feel unsafe, don't have to be afraid. Tell somebody. Tell one of the adults at school. Tell your parents. Tell a neighbor. Tell someone. To the parents, monitor your kids' social media. Parents should be aware of what their children are posting or interacting with online. This is a true group effort. As the mayor says, we can win, but only if we work together. So today, we are going to provide everyone with a snapshot of just some, not all, but some of the ways that the NYPD and the Department of Education work together with the public to make sure we're keeping our kids safe. The mayor recently directed that a meeting be held with all the precinct commanding officers and all the school principals. To my knowledge, this was the first time this has occurred. I spent many years in the NYPD. I do not have a recollection where we held such a meeting. This relationship building has and is developing great success and is contributing to the safety of not only the children in the schools, but the teachers, administrators, agents, and visitors alike. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to NYPD Commissioner Keechant Sewell.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. All of New York City's students need a safe learning environment in order to succeed in the classroom and to thrive in their communities. The NYPD is committed to ensuring that this environment exists in every New York City public school and protecting our school communities, students, staff, families, and teachers is at the core of our public safety mission. This is the determined focus of our nearly 4,000 school safety agents assigned to our school safety division, which Chief Laren will speak about. But we also recognize that safeguarding and improving our schools is not something that our school safety division does on its own. This administration has rightly taken the position that public safety is a collective responsibility, and part of this effort is for the NYPD to deepen its relationships in coordination with our partners. And one of those critical partners is the Department of Education under the leadership of Chancellor David Banks. The police department and the DOE have established true collaboration when working through issues related to school conditions, safety, and training. Our agents and officers cannot do their work without strong relationships with school principals, school administration, teachers, parents, and most importantly, students. While we do communicate frequently, in fact, the Chancellor and I actually meet weekly, earlier this year, as the Deputy Mayor said, the NYPD formalized a process that now requires that our borough and precinct commanders meet either in person or virtually on a monthly basis with every school principal in their area of responsibility. The response to this directive has been very positive from both our personnel and the DOE, and these meetings have provided an additional opportunity to discuss safety plans with our local schools and workshop new ideas. The NYPD has also been intensely focused on youth crime. Over the last several years, there have been a significant increase in the number of shooters under the age of 18 and the number under 18 of people who are victims and arrested with a gun. In fact, under 18 shooting victims actually accounted for 10% of our shooting victims over the last year. So pointedly, what we see is an increase in youth crime and more youth victims of crime. Over the past few months, the NYPD has deployed resources to ensure that our children have what we call safe passage to and from school each day. A child's commute is an extension of their school day, and wherever we see an issue arrive, we must have the resources in place to address it. This includes leveraging our patrol officers, traffic safety personnel, and our transit police officers to be strategically aware and visible on school routes and corridors. In addition to our school safety agents, our precinct-based youth coordination officers are also deployed daily to school dismissals across the city. But we know we cannot do this work in silos. We work closely with the mayor's office, the DOE, and others to keep our children safe. Lastly, it's important to highlight the joint work we perform with the DOE when it comes to active shooter and active threat training. While we all regret that there is even a need for such training, it addresses a stark reality of our modern times. Prior to the school year, in response to a number of school shooting incidents nationwide, the NYPD Counterterrorism Division and School Safety Division facilitated training and programs for school safety agents and members of the DOE. This training was designed to strengthen the response capabilities to all of those working in a school environment in the event of an active school shooter incident, and provide techniques and principles that can be effectively used to diminish threats of all types. Over 5,000 members of the NYPD School Safety Division and the DOE received this training. All of this is done to remain vigilant and to supplement the school safety plans that each precinct and patrol borough maintains, which are tailored to the conditions of our communities. Providing a safe climate in every New York City public school is of the utmost importance to the NYPD, and the police department will continue to work in partnership with the DOE, school leaderships, parents, students, and the communities we serve in furtherance of that responsibility. Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
I'd like to now, we're going to hear from now Chief Marlon Laren. He's going to give us an update specifically on what we're doing with the school safety agency in schools. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Good afternoon, Police Commissioner Sewell, Chancellor Banks, DOE Chief of Safety Mark Rampersant, and members of the public. I am Deputy Chief Marlon Laren of the School Safety Division, and I will provide a brief overview of our operations as it stands today. The division is responsible for working hand in hand with the Department of Education to promote positive youth outcomes and to provide safety and security to the 1,800 plus school communities housed in approximately 1,400 buildings throughout the city. The division is staffed by just over 4,000 civilian and uniformed members of the service. We will be welcoming a new class of 118 school safety agents on May 1st, and we anticipate another class of approximately 175 agents in April. Finally, on May 3rd, there will be a school safety agent exam for the 5,000 plus candidates who filed earlier in the year. Many of these candidates were recruited by active school safety agents who are normally assigned to community outreach functions. These same community outreach agents comprise our Outreach with Options unit. This unit is a blend of agents with police officers that are responsible for interacting with students to offer support and to raise awareness on trending items such as vaping, drug use, suicide, bullying, and trafficking. At our wellness centers in the Bronx, South Queens, North Brooklyn, and coming soon to Harlem, they deliver virtual reality training sessions that are anchored in social emotional learning and conflict resolution. Additional workshops cover topics such as financial wellness, photography, spoken word, and videography. Moving on to improvements in technology and training, during the current school year, every school safety agent has been equipped with the same cell phones and capabilities that are afforded to police officers for instant connectivity with the rest of the department. We moved over to a radio infrastructure that gives agents direct access to 911, police communications technicians in the event of crime or disorder in and around our schools while still being able to communicate with DOE administrators. Agents in 2 boroughs are using the latest model radios, and we seek to expand this on a citywide basis. As the police commissioner said, we enlisted the help of the Counterterrorism Division to train our agents in the most up-to-date curriculum regarding active threats and patient management. We will also be upgrading some of the equipment of our agents, and they will be armed with belt-worn trauma kits, which include first aid materials in the event of an emergency. The School Safety Division operates under the purview of the Community Affairs Bureau, and we work in tandem with other major bureaus within the police department to provide safe corridors to young people as they travel to and from school. Some of the steps that we take to achieve this include, but are not limited to, overlaying mobile patrol units with our partners in patrol, housing, and transit for high visibility coverage, actively monitoring 911 calls for shots fired, stabbing, slashings, and group conflicts within the immediate vicinities of school in order to implement DOE general response protocols such as sheltering in place, notifying patrol services of any incidents or events that may escalate to an act of violence, implementing plans to increase coverage when a threat to a specific person or to a school site is made, and unimpeded communication with our partners at DOE to avert conflicts and to solve problems that affect school communities. In closing, the School Safety Division is a proud partner of the Department of Education. It is our honor to bear the mantle of keeping our school community safe. Finally, we as a division and the police department at large will not rest until every young person is safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, I have one just point in question. I was on the merger team when school safety, which was under the DOE originally before we merged, and then when I was the chief of community affairs, as you mentioned. And one, I just want to give a shout out. I've always felt as though that they were one of the truly like unsung heroes in this city. They never get the focus. They don't get their recognition as I think they deserve. And I just want to applaud you for the work that you're doing over there, and just to the agents that's there, and to you, Mark, as well, because they truly do a fantastic job. But I just want a critical part is that we see around the country where we have these instances where danger takes place in school, and the amount of time in which responders can get there is critical. You're stating now that we have the radios that they can now communicate directly with patrol forces now. Can you just speak a little briefly on that? Because it appears that that's going to cut some time, right? And the time, we understand, is very critical before we can get help there to assist the children. Can you just speak about that?
Yes, sir, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for your comments. I truly believe that under this administration, our agents are getting the most support that they've seen in a long time. They do very much with very little, and we're very proud of the work that they do. But as it relates to our radio capabilities now, the way that the agents communicated prior to this school year was directly with other school safety agents at our headquarters in Long Island City. Those are additional steps that were in the middle of getting police officers and our emergency services unit, if necessary, to the scene, because in that event, the agent on the field would communicate with an agent at our building, then they in turn would have to call 911. So we cut that middle step out of the way, and the agents on the field can communicate directly to a 911 communications technician on their own division, and that technician will lateral it over to the technician in charge of that specific geographical area. So it cuts down the response time significantly, and the agents are still able to communicate with the DOE administrators to take those steps and implement them to ensure that a shooter or a threat does not penetrate the school site.
Got it. Okay, so we can still communicate with the school safety headquarters, but in certain situations, we can skip a step and get directly to 911, which cuts down our response time.
That is correct, sir.
Fantastic, good. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, school safety is not just confined to any walls of any building. It's not just a matter of having security measures at the school entrance or a school safety agent at the front door. This ensures a holistic approach to school safety. And I think that this is what the administration has been focused on. This is what the chancellor has been focused on. And right now, we're going to hear from the chancellor to speak to us about the measures taking place.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everybody who's here and everybody who is listening, participating in this forum. There's no more important responsibility that I have as chancellor than keeping all of our children safe. I don't do that by myself. The NYPD has tremendous responsibility in this, but I think to the police commissioner's credit, she recognizes it is a joint venture. It is the village. It is parents. It is community members. It is NYPD. It's all of the folks who work every single day in our schools with our kids. They all play a role in addition to the school safety agents. And I have the greatest respect for school safety agents. And some folks know that I was a school safety agent. I worked at Clara Barton High School and wore a uniform before I was a school teacher. And so I recognize I have a particular sensitivity to ensuring that every single one of our children, not only that they're safe, but that they feel safe. Those are two different things. And so I really want to credit the mayor, because one of the first things that the mayor really pushed to make sure that it happened a couple months ago was to get every principal in New York City public schools, which, by the way, guys, we're trying to get away from DOE. We're trying to change the narrative on how we refer to our schools, which is important. We're referring it more and more to New York City public schools, because a lot of times our parents and our families experience even the term DOE as a very negative term. And so we've taken to encourage more and more of New York City public schools. And in our public schools, the mayor said, let's get all of our precinct commanders together on a Zoom with every principal in the city. And it was a very powerful message that he delivered which was essentially to say we have to build a greater level of communication. We have not seen an appreciable increase of real incidents in our schools. What we've seen is a lot of what's been happening on the exterior, right outside the school, around the block, up the street. And we have seen a pretty dramatic rise in the number of weapons that our kids have brought to school. But what our kids are telling us is that they're not bringing the weapons to do damage to their classmates in school. They're doing it to protect themselves as they make their way to school and when they're leaving school. I think that's an important distinction that we have to make. And so the mayor's point in bringing all of us together was to say there are issues that start to brew while they're happening in school. We need to be aware of it so that we can get in front of it. And I think that's going to make a big, big difference. So these meetings are happening every week. I talk to principals all over the city. They find them to be extremely valuable. And one of the things that we found out was that the charter school principals were not initially part of those conversations. And we've subsequently brought a meeting together with the charter school leaders from around the city. And now all the charter schools are also represented as part of this process. And so it's really very, very important. We're really excited about that. But many members of the community said you cannot police your way out of this. The community has to be involved. And that's one of the reasons why we launched Project Pivot. We launched Project Pivot as a $9+ million effort to engage community-based organizations. These are folks who grew up in the community, who know the community, who are mentoring young people, who are providing all kinds of additional supports. They are members of the community, and they are playing a huge part in this turnaround. And so we're very early on in the process, but we're feeling really good about where we are. We're looking to increase the level of investment in getting the community, specifically through Project Pivot, to be much more involved, much more engaged, because young people tell us over and over that they want to see more programs. Police Commissioner and I, earlier in the year, were together, and we went to Evander Childs High School. And while we were there, we were talking about issues of safety. And Commissioner, when you agree overwhelmingly, they told us we want to see more programs, things that will keep us engaged, keep us off the street, positive things that we can be a part of. And that's what we are trying to lean into and making those things happen. But I will tell you also, something that keeps me up at night is when I look around the country and I see the issues that are happening with these mass shootings, where people just walk into the building and shoot the place up. That keeps me up at night. And that is part of the reason why the mayor has authorized us to move forward with what we're calling our safer access system. Some folks know it as a door locking camera system. We intend to lock the front doors once our kids are in school, and anybody who's coming to visit the school will have to present themselves before entry is made. The doors will not be wide open for anyone to simply walk into. We're going to start this process in May. We're going to start with our elementary schools first. It's going to take place over a number of months. We certainly hope to have all of our schools outfitted with this new technology by the spring. Of our school safety agents are being trained in this new system as well. And so that is a different level of safety. That's not the daily issues that we're looking at, but that is meant to prevent the mass tragedies that we've been seeing all too often across the nation, and we're going to do everything we can to prevent something like that from happening as well. And the final thing I just want to say here as well is, again, going back to what the police commissioner said, the responsibility for the safety of our children rests with all of us. It is not just the chancellor's responsibility, it's not just the mayor's responsibility, it is not just the police commissioner's responsibility. And I say this at town hall forums all across the city. Parents who say to me all the time, we want to be more involved, we want to be more engaged. This is a way you can be engaged. We want you to be at the schools, we want you to be involved with your principals, and we want you to show up and be present and be an extra set of eyes and ears. Together, if we're all working together, that's how we not only ensure that kids are safe, but we help them to also feel safe. And that's what our obligation is, and that's what we're working toward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Hey, so Mark, this system that the Chancellor just spoke about, right? I went out to a school with you, I believe it was in Queens early in the year, and You gave me an orientation on that. Can you speak briefly exactly what that is and
Yes,
the
sir,
progress?
absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So this system, just like the Chancellor just shared, the Safer Access System will give the school safety agent the ability to do access control right from the main desk. It will allow visitors to be seen and communicate directly with the school safety agent before the school safety agent grants access. This is not a system that we're employing to keep our parents out of our building. This is a system that we're employing to keep anybody with ill intentions from accessing our school buildings. It'll give the school safety agent the ability right there from the desk to see through a two-way camera system and communicate through a communication system as well, buzz the visitor in once they've confirmed their meeting or their business at the school.
Now, in the event that police have to get into the school and the door is locked, did we take that into consideration?
Yeah, 100%. We took a very comprehensive look at the different systems that were out there before choosing a system that will allow for us to answer the question of when and if something happens in our school, how our first responders will have direct access. So this particular system has the ability to give our officers access by using a code that will be provided to all of our precincts that will give police officers direct contact or access to our schools. And this is when our alarms go off in our schools and there is a check needed. Currently, a custodian has to come and give access. This way, the police officers or first responders will have direct access by punching a code that will give them direct access to the school.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so thank you. We've heard from all of our guests. I very much appreciate it. I think that was a lot of good information. Hopefully that the parents out there will take heed. I'm certainly confident that they feel a lot safer after hearing this particular information, but this is not the end. This is the beginning, and we're going to continue to move on as we protect our citizens, and specifically our children. Derek?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We will now open it up for a few on-topic questions from the media. Fabian?
So one of the concerns from some PEP members who voted no to this door lock camera system was the concern that students who are seeking help, oftentimes when we have these shootings after school or during school hours involving students outside of the school, they often run to school for a safe haven. If a school security person is not manning the desk, what happens to those kids who desperately need help?
Want me to answer? No, listen, we heard that. We heard the concern that was raised at the PEP. Listen, there's no system, right, that will answer every single question and be fully responsive. The number of students that we have who are just out in the streets who need to run into a school is few and far between. The challenge that we have is to ensure that we keep all of these kids safe. And the idea that we would somehow keep that front door open, I have heard from leaders all across the city who have said, we've been saying this for years, you have to lock the front door. Now, this front door will still be manned. There was still going to be somebody there. If there's a young person who's in some level of distress, that school safety agent at the front door is going to see that, and they're going to respond to that. That will be part of the training that they're also getting with respect to this safer access system. It's part of the training that they will, in fact, receive.
But until what time? Oftentimes we see shootings at 3:30 happening after dismissal in the area. Oftentimes school safety has left the desk already, correct?
No. The agents, it'll go on as long as, in fact, agents are, in fact, in the building. And agents are assigned to the building as long as there are people in the building. And so if there are programs that are happening in the school at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, agents are assigned to the school. The agents don't check out at 3 o'clock or 3:30, and there are still people in the building, and it's good luck to everybody else. No. There's always an agent assigned to the building if there are people in the building. And if there's no one in the building, then there's no school safety agent. And if a child showed up at a time when there was nobody there, there's nothing we would be able to do at that point anyway.
You guys talked about kind of de-siloing, in terms of the Department of Education, the public schools, as you're referring to them now, and the NYPD communicating. So, many elected officials have kind of highlighted, well, there's this aspect of public safety that deals with social services and social services delivery on the kind of front end of it. So I'm curious, what kind of interactions has have public schools had with agencies like DSS, ACS, like to kind of better communicate moving forward? Or do you have plans to kind of do that more?
Well, we are in regular communication across a whole host of mayoral agencies. The guidance counselors that are in our schools, the social workers that we've got across pretty much every school in the city now, as well as thankful to the city council and the legislation that they passed that allowed for that to happen. There is a tremendous level of communication that happens on a regular basis. What we've been talking about here is really establishing a very strong level of communication, certainly between the police commissioner and myself. I don't know that that has happened much in the past, and that has been a kind of our foundational experience. But I meet with a host of commissioners also, not as regularly as I meet with the police commissioner, but we're in constant communication, and the mayor brings us together on a very regular basis, so these conversations that are happening very regularly.
There are many fewer school safety agents today than there were before the pandemic. That'll be true even after these couple of upcoming classes. We haven't really seen an indication in the budget of plans to, fill many of those vacancies or get back to those prior levels. I'm curious, is that a policy decision? Is it a budget decision? Is it trouble recruiting? And if so, do you think the salary could be a concern that's an issue the union has raised?
So we're operating, as you stated, with some significant vacancies in our school safety agents, but that's largely due to the fact that there was an extended hiring freeze on that title, during the prior administration. So as we try to hire up to those positions, we've done a significant amount of recruiting. As the chief mentioned, we are graduating a class that should be out in May 1st, I believe, of 122. We expect to hire another group on April 19th. So while we continue to recruit and hire up to the numbers that we'd like to see them, we're doing a lot of outreach to be able to tell people this is a great position. They do so much. They truly are. As was stated here, they are the unsung heroes. So anyone who is interested to join us and become a school safety agent, we encourage you to come on and join the NYPD.
But is there any intention to get back to the level that you were at before the pandemic? I mean, this is like thousands difference.
We were about 400 short. We actually are about 3,928, I believe. We're about 400 short. Don't quote me on that exact number, but we intend to hire up to the point where we were before if we can.
Thank you, Commissioner. Earlier this week, the administration reached out to New Yorkers, asking them to submit questions for the officials that have joined us here today. We will now get to as many of those as we can with the amount of time that we have left. Our first question comes from Crystal in the Bronx. She asks, with the focus of making the school environment more inclusive and accepting for all students, are there any current or future plans to increase repercussions for cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying is an example of bullying, and we've got protocols in place for bullying of all types. And so, it's, cyberbullying is a more recent occurrence. With the recent technology advancement, particularly coming off of the pandemic. So our teachers are becoming much more aware of it, and we're constantly looking at new ways to monitor it. Because some of these things happen, they're not happening on school time. Generally, we've been dealing with traditional bullying. We've been dealing with issues that take place in school. And so I think the issues of cyberbullying are things that are happening very often outside of the normal school hours, but we are still monitoring that, and when we're made aware of the issues, we still deal with them very much in the same ways. And again, cyberbullying is the effect of that is, again, for kids to not feel safe. So you might physically be safe, but emotionally you're not safe. If you feel under assault, you feel like you're being mistreated, and so that's a body of work that we still continue to engage with in our school communities. And that is why we continue to fortify the work that we're doing in our schools, together with, again, not just our social workers, but our teachers, our principals. When you create a great culture in school, where kids recognize and respect everybody in their school, you minimize issues like cyberbullying. So that's a body of work that we continue to be a part of.
And I'd just like to add on to that question, because I think it's a very good question, is that when we started out earlier about the mayor's points about parents paying attention, as the chancellor said, a lot of this bullying will take place after, in fact, school hours, via the internet. you have to get into your children. You have to stay into your children. You have to notice when something is wrong, and you have to have an environment where they're comfortable coming to speak to you, an older sibling, a neighbor, and it starts with just those conversations, because if we catch it early, then we just increase our, our chances of negating it in the future. But it festers, and then it has an impact on that particular child. And those signs you see. So we ask for everyone. The chancellor just said that the school officials look for it, but we also need that to be reinforced at the parents' level. And if we do that together, as the mayor says, we can win if we all just work together.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Catherine from East Harlem. Do beat cops also patrol school areas?
It's the responsibility of all police officers to protect every area of their responsibility, but we do have youth coordination officers that are in each precinct that go to the schools at the time of dismissal. Officers do patrol the areas, but I do want to add something that we talked about briefly earlier, is our safe passage or safe corridor that we put in place in conjunction with the New York City public school system. We use our patrol officers, our traffic safety agents, everyone to be able to provide students a safe way to get to and from school. But the chancellor, during one of our conversations, he actually brought forth a very important part of this, similar to what the deputy mayor just talked about, and that's getting our parents involved in those safe corridors as well. So it's going to take all of us to keep our children safe, but our patrol officers do patrol around the schools, but we have youth coordination officers as well that work with our school safety agents.
Our next question comes from Pedro in the Bronx, who asks, is there a reporting system for teachers who see disturbing behavior like gang activity in the schools?
Yes, that is correct. So all of our teachers are familiar with our ORS reporting system, which is our online occurrence reporting system. Anything that happens in the school is reported directly to the dean and or the assistant principal, or a designated staff member identified by the assistant principal. All of these incidents are recorded in our ORS system and followed up with the appropriate disciplinary action, interventions or action.
Thank you. Jacqueline from Queens asks, how many social workers to school safety officers are there per school?
How many school safety agents per school? So
Social workers to, the ratio of school safety agents to social workers, is that what the question is?
Correct.
So I can just speak to the number of school safety agents varies per school based on the size of the school and a number of different factors, but I'll let the chance.
Yeah, we'd have to run the numbers in terms of the ratio on that, yeah, but you know, every school now has within their budget and a level of autonomy to hire a social worker. So we've got a couple of thousand social workers that are in our schools, but that decision is made by the school level. We don't direct from the chancellor's office to every school that you must in fact have a social worker. Most of them have taken advantage of doing that. But some schools have decided they wanted to use their funding for other personnel, and we leave that to the discretion of the school leadership.
Thank you. Next question comes from Rosa in East Harlem. It is important for the DOE, NYPD, and Mayor's Office to have an open communication with residents and parent leaders who are outside each day doing the work and helping our schools. How do you plan to implement this effort?
So as we've stated repeatedly to our communities, that we are always in collaboration. We always want to be able to be accessible through community council meetings, parent-teacher conferences that our community affairs and our school safety agents will attend as well. It's important that we recognize that this is going to have to be a group approach. We do so much outreach with our communities in the NYPD. Our Community Affairs Bureau goes out to talk at a number of different events that happen at all hours of the day because we recognize the challenges with some parents and communities in terms of work schedules. But we always want to remain connected with our communities. There are a number of different outreach opportunities, connection opportunities that the communities have with the NYPD. We encourage you to go on our website and be able to volunteer or be able to find out when we have a meeting or an event that you can come and participate in as well.
Let me say also, since I've become chancellor, I have had more engagement with parent organizations than not. There are dozens of parent organizations, and we are in collaboration and communication with so many of them, from our CECs to our SOTs and parents associations and presidents' councils. I mean, there are so many parent organizations where there's a level of communication that is built into our system. And we continue to try to refine that and to hone that and to hear from our parents around what they think are the best ways, in fact, for us to move forward. But parents are not a monolith either. There are parents in certain parts of the city who have very different thoughts and feelings than parents in other parts of the city. My job is to try to listen to all of them and try to help to create policy and procedures here that meet the needs of all of our families, recognizing the level of diversity that we do have. But Mark, you want to add something as well?
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on that, we talked about the importance of parent involvement in our schools. So when we talk about whether or not that exists currently, all of our parents are welcome to participate in our schools, and we continue to push and push and push to get that member of the community, the village's voice heard in our schools, right? And so the Chancellor just reiterated the importance of having parents volunteer, right? And so I wanted to reiterate that, to get that on this platform, that we need the support of the entire community in order to keep our schools safe.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I just may add one
course
more
you
thing.
can.
Also, for the parents, they may not know there are advocacy groups that are out there that we work with. I can name one right now, the New York City School Safety Coalition. They're very active. They show up at the schools. They promote safety all around for the young people. And just recently, they held a resource fair up in Harlem that the mayor attended personally. And it was a town hall style meeting with parents and kids where they can voice their concerns as to what's affecting them. Because we all here at this table believe that we should also be youth informed. So instead of doing things to them or talking to them, we should be talking with them.
And let me just say one last thing on this as well. And it's not just the parents, it is the community. And so what I mean by that there are community organizations, there are credible messenger groups. We're engaging all of them because it's going to take all of us working together in order for us to solve for this.
I just want to we've all touched on that. Every precinct has a precinct council. They meet monthly, where you can sit down and converse with the precinct commanding officer. And the precinct commanding officer they're coordinating the public safety efforts in your respective precincts. And I would just strongly suggest that everyone go to at least one meeting. I guarantee if you go to one, you'll go to two. If you go to two, you'll go to three. But if you look at government, the opportunity that you can sit down and directly ask a precinct commanding officer a question. These meetings should be standing room only. Some are, and they are increasing. But you have the opportunity to hear directly what's going on specifically in your community and the things that you could do to help yourself become safer, but more importantly, what you want that precinct commanding officer to know, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. It's a critical tool that's there. It's been there for a long time, and a lot of people don't take advantage of it. So we're just pushing that. Every precinct has a precinct community council. Go on the NYPD's website. It will absolutely lay out exactly when it is and what the time is. And I strongly encourage all to take advantage of that.
Our next question comes from Angelica in Queens. I believe the commissioner may have touched on, or the chancellor may have touched on this during his remarks, but she asks, do New York City schools have a uniform system to ID visitors?
I can take that question. So any visitor coming to a school site has to check in at the main entrance, at the main desk. The school safety agent there will request who the person is via identification, what the nature of their business is, and then they will reach out to the administration to verify that and allow access into the school.
And our final question comes from Emily in Manhattan, who asks, with the accessibility of marijuana products, are schools seeing an increase in students who are attending school under the influence or disruptive in our classrooms?
Yeah, one of the things that we shared earlier is the relationship that is established between our school leaders and our precinct commanders. And our schools have shared an uptick in the number of shops that are opening up around schools, and we are very concerned that those shops have direct access to our young people. As it relates to an increase, there has certainly been more concerns expressed by young people under the, or potentially under the influence. All of our school leaders are trained to take the appropriate action if we feel like a young person is under the influence. But one of the good things that has been put in place is that relationship that exists so we can report those concerns directly to our local precinct commanders.
Yeah, but we are concerned. I want to say that it's anecdotal evidence that we've seen so far. We don't have the, full-on numbers on it, but as what we hear from our school leaders across the city, people are concerned with a bit of an uptick in our students getting access to these to this kind of stuff. So we're paying close attention.
But as you've seen, the mayor has made it a priority to make sure that the police department, in conjunction with the sheriffs, are addressing these smoke shops. There's a lot of nuisance abatements we have filed, but we're going to continue to work with our partners to be able to shut most of these down when we can.
Thank you, Commissioner. On behalf of the Adams administration, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in to today's briefing. We look forward to seeing you at our next one. Have a great day.
Thank you.